This is your girl, J. Marie, host of the Dirty Pleasure Show. In case you're interested in supporting the show, you can head over to thedirtypleasureshow.com where you can pick up these tanks and t-shirts. The sweats and the leggings that are in the video, y'all, are not for sale.
Gayla, what do you think about sexual addiction? I know that was just about.
Okay, so can you be more specific? Like,
okay, all right. Give me a second. I have a video from Jada Pickett. She talks, and this is going to lead into another conversation, but she talks about her own sexual addiction. So let's go.
I definitely think I had a sex addiction of some kind. Yes, that everything could be fixed by sex.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Or
it's the behavior.
It's the behavior that's attached to it. Because if you want to have a lot of sex, that's great. But why are you having all that sex? That's what you got to look at. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Sex wasn't the only obstacle she's faced.
I became a gym addict. I was just in the gym constantly. And then I remember reaching a rock bottom. That time I was in the house by myself and I had those 2 bottles of wine and was going.
So.
Wait, is that August? Is that August? Wait, is that August?
That's what I'm saying. Is that August Alsina?
Yes, that's August.
Yes.
Was that recent? That was after the exposure of them sleeping together or before?
That was before. That was before. Okay. That was before because you seen he was really healthy during that time. He had a.
Oh, that nigga. Okay.
So back to Gail. Hold on. Back to Gail. So when we talk about sexual addiction, do you understand the context now of what I mean? What do you think about that?
I think addiction is addiction.
Yes.
If it's left unchecked and you don't, check the behavior, find the root cause of why that is your go-to place, for lack of a better term, then it can destroy you. And look, she's the perfect example because she self-admitted that she had an addiction to sex, and she has taken her and her husband's legacy and allowed it to be, destroyed. I mean, they used to be the quintessential Black love, Black couple, Black Hollywood. People aspired to be like them. Now they're a joke, for lack of a better term. Mm-hmm. And I think her sex addiction has led to that. I don't know. We all love sex, don't we?
But you're not wrong.
You're not wrong.
I'm just saying, I don't know what addiction to sex look like. I don't have the time for all that sex. I don't know if I'm jealous.
You gotta be broke or have the kind of money coming in that you can afford to do that. Because these days the cost of living is, I can't afford to do that.
Me neither. And she's one example of a self-admitted sex addict. And look at Tiger Woods. It destroyed his marriage to Elle. It destroyed Halle Berry's marriage to Eric Benet. Those three public figures three public couples that we know about where a sex addiction was part of the reason for the demise of their relationship. So I don't think there's any good thing that comes of it. So
now I previously asked you guys about how does it affect the children. Now, how do you teach from a flawed standpoint? How do you teach sexuality or moral sexuality from a flawed standpoint? Mama, you was a freak. How you gonna tell me not to have sex?
I think everything we teach is from a flawed standpoint. We haven't perfected anything. So it's just the same approach. We're better at some things.
Yeah, I think it's the authenticity that you come to the conversation with when you're talking to your child. Because if you're approaching the situation as if you're perfect and you've never done anything, and then you're like, don't do this, don't do that, versus saying, listen, in my past, I did a lot of things that I'm not super proud of, and I don't want you going down the same path that I went down because you don't have to. And I felt like I had to, and I didn't have the mother talking to me or the father talking to me or the counselor or the therapist or whatever talking to me to work these things out. But I want to make sure you have that if you need it, or if I'm telling you this, maybe you need it. You know what I mean? Because I want to make sure that whatever is or was my situation, doesn't happen for you the same way. Because then we go into that whole thing where the apple don't fall too far from the tree. So then, is it hereditary? Is it sort of
Yeah.
that whole thing where it's like, well, if it don't happen to you, it's gonna happen to your kids. You know what I mean? So we kind of fall into that area where we're trying to just, if you're trying to be proactive, you're talking to them in that fashion versus do as I say, not as I do. But then you're not giving them any type of practical information that's gonna help them. If they
Right.
are having an issue and they just not telling you yet.
You know what? I want to piggyback because Jay, when you were talking, I was thinking about our initial conversation, and I know that both of us, and I'm only speaking to Jay because we've had that one-on-one conversation.
Mm-hmm.
We both have grown or adult children, and in regards to what we're talking
Just
about,
just tell my age. Hold on.
I didn't. I'm
So do I.
sorry,
No,
So
no,
do,
I'm playing. I'm
so do I.
playing.
but you know what? I want to say
Hold
this.
on, and then but Maisha does too, by the way. So she in that boat
Okay,
too. But
I already told you.
okay. So guys, talk about teaching from or having a conversation with your children, or what did you say? Teaching from a flawed person, whatever, right? I think we're forgetting that as a parent. Let me try to break this down. The conversation that you may have with your child about your past when they are 12, because that's the beginning of understanding pre-adolescents and
mm-hmm.
teenagers, is going to be a whole different conversation when that
Right.
or your son reaches the age of 25 and now that subject comes back up. It's a
Right.
different conversation because now they have their own mind. They probably have their own sexual history at this point, and what you're telling them not to do is not good enough anymore because now they have their own. They've went out into the world and they have their own experience. So I think a lot of people, when they're doing their thing, right, you're not thinking if the parent is told,
Bless
She
her
said
heart. We're not.
it's genetic. She said it's genetic.
I'm just saying, I think when we think about how it's going to affect the children, I think we're actually thinking about children and not actually having these conversations and how it's going to impact our adult children when
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
able to fully comprehend. Mama was busting it wide open on TV. She
Yeah.
did more, Those
I
are the
think I really think it's a battle of navigating, say, moral sexuality versus, say, like a social moral social sexuality,
But
where you're teaching your kids of, like you say, at a young age to basically not have sex, to be, or if they're gonna have sex, use protection and all that stuff. But then when you get older, you're like, look, young man, you need to sow your wild oats, or young lady, you need to date more. And the conversation is different, but I think morally, depending on where you're at, I think the conversation definitely changes, and you're always constantly navigating how to say, you know what, say, for instance, you've already had sex, you're in college, this is perfectly normal, but you need to study your books, you need to do this, you need to do that. So I think we all kind of fall victim to kind of the same old, with, like Gayla was saying, the church way of doing things, and then you learn, as you break free of these kind of social constructs of religion or society, you're finding out that, what, sexuality is something that you need to take care of.
right.
You might even be considered a freak, but as
well,
long as you're doing it.
one of the
Gayla, do
one of the things that I think is fair to also touch on is because the way that parent raised their child, right? They
yes.
may have raised them in a free spirited way, in a non like they're super inclusive of all types of people and things like that, right? So by the time that child becomes an adult, they already have their perception of sexuality, their understanding of sexuality at this point. So when if they were to find out, for instance, now they're in their 20s and they find out that mom used to do, OnlyFans or whatever, and then it's in their face per se, and they're like, okay, well, my mom always raised me this way and that way, so I can see her doing that. That's
Yeah.
typically I can see that, and it's understood in a different way. It's like we're grown. Like at this point, you know, if I found out about it when I was a kid and I was teased about it, then there's a difference.
What about the
In my
sons?
opinion, of how that would or of how they would deal with it.
What about the
Yeah.
sons? Yo, daddy
It's
was a
just,
player.
it's still,
Yo, daddy was a player.
oh, you talking about on the flip side of it, not the mom side, but the dad side,
Uh-huh.
and him trying to teach his son. Same thing. Like he could teach it from the standpoint of, hey, I fucked up, bro. Okay, I don't want you going down the path. I done dealt with some crazy bitches. It's like they're gonna have a way to explain not to do the same things. I would think.
Or the
Most of the
sons would
guys
be
I
different.
know,
If they got multiple sons, one son may view their father as a person who disrespects women. And the other son is just like, well, he liked women. He liked the hoes. But it's that's why I said everybody's an individual. And then as people get to know themselves, but if you're honest with your kids throughout the entire experience and you let them know they're an individual, there's not necessarily a right and a wrong. You just don't do things against people's wishes. But you learn yourself. You explore for yourself, not anybody else's moral compass. Don't do more than you can handle. Don't feel pressure to do something because it can break you,
So
psychologically.
you can't learn from a freak in the past.
You can.
What lessons can we learn from a freak in the past?
can we
I mean, they have
learn? Isn't that
experience.
how we bring more to the table? But,
Yeah, they're
okay.
experienced. And then we forget about like the emotional and psychological baggage that comes with being intimate with multiple people. They have already experienced all of this. They can tell you like, hey, if you want to get into this world, understand that it's a world, make sure you can handle it. And then they can tell you different things that happen within it, whether it be emotional, whether it be physical, stuff that somebody who hasn't had that experience can't tell you. We can just tell you from this like I said, this moral compass standpoint of, no, that's not good, and that's dirty and that's
TheDirtyPleasureShow.com.
I am your AI baddie for the Dirty Pleasure Show. We couldn't have you here without showing you some of our favorites. Follow us on social media, share or repost, grab some merch, whatever way you want to support the show. See you on the YouTube side.